All right. So, I have two articles for you today, both dealing with fighting back against book bans. So, the first article is Teacher Fights Back After School Suspends Her for Having LGBTQ plus books in the classroom. All right. And it sounds like she's turning the religious freedom argument on its head, because a lot of people are trying to use you're violating my religious freedom to believe that LGBT plus people should burn in hell or something. She's using that argument as well. But anyway, to the article. An elementary teacher of 30 years filed a federal lawsuit against her school district for allegedly violating her religious and moral beliefs by suspending her for having LGBTQ plus inclusive books in her classroom. The New Richmond Exempted Village School District suspended Karen Cahill for 3 days without pay last November after at least one parent, Kayla Shaw, complained to the school principal and board about 4 inappropriate books with LGBTQ plus characters in Chagall's classroom. Okay, someone misspelled something somewhere. The books were among the 100 estimated books in bins located in her classroom. The books were the 2020 non-binary coming-of-age story Anna on the Edge by A.J. Sass, the 2021 trans-inclusive treasure-hunting adventure story The Fabulous Zed Watson by Basil Sylvester, and the 2021 lesbian family drama Hazel Bly and the Deep Blue Sea by Ashley Herring Blake, and the 2021 trans-inclusive ghost story Too Bright to See by Kyle Lukov. None of the books feature sexual content, but they all include LGBTQ plus characters who are coming to terms with feeling different and excluded, the Cincinnati Enquirer reported. So, reality. People have a problem with kids learning about other people experiencing their reality. Yeah, okay. The parents' complaint was sent to District Superintendent Tracy Miller, who immediately commenced disciplinary proceedings against Cahill, her lawsuit states. Miller's disciplinary letter said that Cahill knew the books were controversial and not acceptable because her earlier request to have them included in the school library was denied. You subsequently placed the books in your classroom library without putting them through the established approval process, the letter stated, accusing Cahill of intentionally doing so. Cahill, who plans on retiring in January 2025, filed a lawsuit stating that the books weren't prominently displayed, weren't a part of her classroom lessons, and weren't required reading for her students. So, what's the problem? Furthermore, Cahill said her sincerely held moral and religious views believe that all children, including ones who are LGBTQ+, or have LGBTQ+ parents, deserve to be respected, accepted, and loved for who they are. I love that. I love it when bigots' arguments are used against them. That is my favorite thing in the entire world. She acknowledges other school district community members have moral and religious views different than hers on LGBTQ+ issues. However, her lawsuit states that the Constitution forbids the government from promoting one religion or religious viewpoint against another. Yes. 1,000 times yes. 1,000,000 times yes. This lawsuit seeks to test the strength of that premise in the face of increasing intolerance and prejudice against members of the LGBTQ+ community through censorship and book bans in our public schools as motivated and guided solely by prejudice, ignorance, and unfounded fear, her lawsuit states. Exactly. Like I said, this is turning the bigots' favorite argument on its head. They're claiming that they should have the religious freedom to be bigots. So someone else is going to claim that her religious and moral beliefs actually tells her to not be a bigot. She alleges that the school district violated her right to due process and that district's policy against controversial materials is too vague for a reasonable person to follow. She also alleges that district policy doesn't specifically govern the books a teacher may have in their classroom if they're not teaching from them. Her lawsuit also notes that during the 2021-22 academic year, the district opposed two proposals, one allowing LGBTQ+ supportive teachers to signal their allyship with rainbow stickers, and another allowing students to inform teachers about their personal names and pronouns. So basically, she's calling out the district for being anti-LGBT+. Because if this was just about books and the content of the books and it wasn't about bigotry, these proposals wouldn't have even been brought up. These proposals, I should say, would have been accepted. Not that, they wouldn't have had to have been brought up because it should have been just allowed. But the fact that it was brought up and rejected tells you that this isn't just about protecting children from certain content. Kay Hall said she also made the books available to help support LGBTQ+ youth who generally experience higher rates of mental distress caused by anti-LGBTQ+ discrimination. However, she denied using the books to indoctrinate students or endorse an LGBTQ+ lifestyle. Now, the only problem I see with this is even if she gave these books to cis and straight students, you are still not indoctrinating students into any lifestyle. You are not endorsing a lifestyle. That is not how this works. I have mentioned this many times before. I grew up experiencing heterosexual relationships and heterosexual coupling and people who just identify as being straight. And I am still asexual. That is not how this works. You do not convince people to be a certain sexual orientation. They just are. If that were the case, most LGBT+ people would be cis and straight because they would be surrounded by heterosexual relationships, and the fact that they would be taught that it's sinful to be anything but straight and cis, they would, of course, choose to not be anything to do with the LGBT+ community. The fact that they still are LGBT+, should tell you that this has nothing to do with choice. You cannot indoctrinate someone into a belief. I should say into a sexual orientation or into a gender identity. You can indoctrinate them into a belief. You can indoctrinate them into hating people who aren't like them. You can totally do that. But you cannot indoctrinate people into something that isn't a choice. Because people do not choose to be LGBT+. And if you could continue to think that, I just don't know what to tell you. Because All I can say is if you're a woman, you're just basically telling me that you are sexually attracted to women and that you are just suppressing that attraction because you know that you're only supposed to be with men, and vice versa if you're a man. And I'm not even sure how that would work with gender identity, except that they continue to pretend that, I don't know, do cis people look at trans people with envy? Is that what they think is happening? That we envy trans people because they decided to be the opposite gender? I honestly don't know how that would work. I mean, admitting that you are actually sexually attracted to the same sex is one thing. But are you secretly saying that you're actually trans and you don't want to admit it? I honestly don't know what to make of that. But that is still a you problem and not a problem with the LGBT plus community. That's just not the way it works. Anyway, she also noted that other teachers display symbols of religious belief, like Christian crosses, and uses school district emails to promote Christian events and charities. And there you have it. And of course, they're not going to buy this because for some reason, Christianity has this special place where other religions, you're not allowed to practice those. That's not religious freedom. Your religious freedom is only to be Christian. Because that somehow makes sense. K-Hall is now suing the district superintendent and school board members for causing economic and non-economic losses and violating her 14th and First Amendment rights to due process and free speech. Which is great to hear. Really, really great to hear. Now, if you don't think that bigots go through absurd lengths to be bigots, I just read an article about a small town where the city council tried to ban pizza parties simply because one Republican, and it was a Republican, said that it was turning kids gay and trans. Pizza. It was turning people gay and trans. So they eventually allowed the parties to continue, but they weren't subsidizing the pizza anymore. Well, there was an online fundraiser, and now they have pizza. It's just ridiculous what some people will do to continue being bigots under the guise of protecting children. It's just beyond stupid. But anyway, the second article that I have for you is New Jersey's governor just signed a law banning book bans to ensure kids can read freely, which I love. Usually not a fan of double negatives, but in this case, love it. And by double negative, I mean a ban on book bans. I just love it, love it, love it. New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy, of course a Democrat, signed the Freedom to Read Act into law on Monday, banning libraries and public schools from banning books. Yes. Across the nation, we have seen attempts to suppress and censor the stories and experiences of others, Murphy said in a statement. I'm proud to amplify the voices of our past and present, as there is no better way for our children to prepare for the future than to read freely. On social media, Murphy also stated that reading freely is key to helping our children become lifelong learners. Okay, and this is his actual tweet. Today I signed the Freedom to Read Act to prevent arbitrary book bans and protect access to age-appropriate materials in our schools and libraries. We have seen politicized attempts to ban and censor books. Reading freely is key to helping our children become lifelong learners. Okay. Now this is a different quote. Part of our responsibility as educators and education policymakers is to empower students by providing access to diverse ideas, knowledge, and perspectives, added New Jersey Acting Education Commissioner Kevin Damer. The Freedom to Read Act demonstrates our commitment to the educational excellence that defines our state. Through this legislation, we are protecting the integrity of our libraries that are curated by dedicated professionals and making those resources available to help every student to grow as a critical thinker. The law is not yet set to take effect for a year, but the New Jersey State Librarian and State Education Commissioner can implement it now as needed. It states that libraries cannot ban books based on origin, background, or the views presented in the text or by the authors. Librarians are also forbidden from banning texts they disagree with. And that's the big one. But, most librarians don't do that, I don't think. Most librarians understand that books should be available to people even if they're hideous. But school boards and library governing bodies must also create policies for curating and removing materials. They must also implement a system for handling book challenges. I don't know. I would hope that most of them already do. Because what library worth their salt wouldn't have a system in place, especially in this day and age? But that should be a given, that people should be able to challenge books, and librarians should have the policy in place to curb stomp those book bans for being really dumb. Anyway, the law also protects all public library staff from criminal and civil liability arising from good faith actions performed pursuant to the provisions of the bill, including stocking diverse and inclusive material and providing residents access to all library material, including diverse and inclusive material. All right. So basically that's saying that if you make material available to the public and it turns out that that material wasn't properly vetted and that it's not appropriate, it's not their fault. It was just an honest mistake. As opposed to crucifying people for thinking something was okay when in reality it wasn't. Last year, Illinois passed a similar bill, becoming the first state to respond to the growing trend of book banning. A few other states, including California and Maryland, have since followed suit. And what do all these people have in common, all these states? They're all run by Democrats. A recent report from free speech nonprofit PEN America found a major increase in book bans during the 2023-24 school year, with over 10,000 books banned across the United States. The 2022-23 year saw a total of 3,362 books banned across the country. So that's quite a jump. PEN America also says the types of books banned include books featuring romance, books about women's sexual experiences, and books about rape or sexual abuse, as well as continued attacks on books with LGBTQ+ characters or themes, or books about race or racism featuring characters of color. Romance books? We're banning Harlequin novels now? What the fuck? I mean, Can we just scream that unless it's an experience of a white man with a thistle up his ass, that it doesn't belong in public discourse? That they're the only ones that matter? I honestly have no idea what the hell is going on. I'm not a big fan of romance. Actually do not like romance novels. I don't think they should be banned, however. Florida and Iowa are leading in the total number of bans, with over 8,000 recorded between the two states. Florida doesn't surprise me. I'm not sure what to say about Iowa. This number is largely due to the increasingly strict laws on book bans. The organization also emphasized that these numbers are an undercount of the actual amount of banned books, since many book bans go unreported. Additionally, the organization said schools have also implemented soft book bans, including policies that cause greater hesitancy to check out books from libraries, restrictions on who can check out restricted books, book fair cancellations, and removing classroom collections. So that's great that more and more states are realizing that the right has weaponized book challenges to ensure that only ideas they like is in the public square, as if they can force people to only read the books that they want them to, not just their own children, but everybody, that somehow the world will suddenly be shaped in the way they want it, and people that they don't want to exist will suddenly cease to exist, which is not the way it works. Even if that could work, the internet exists. How exactly do you propose, okay, they can't get it from the library. They can probably read the book on the internet, so I'm not so sure you're actually accomplishing what you think you're accomplishing. And like I said, even if they try to make people forget that LGBT plus people exist, black people exist, actually any non-white person exists, that women exist, we don't suddenly disappear just because our experiences are no longer in books. We still exist. It's just stupid. Utterly, utterly stupid. And that's why I led with the, well, I shouldn't say led, but my middle interlude was about the pizza party. Because people will go to any length to try to restrict any amount of fun under the guise of protecting people, because they just can't accept that there might be people with different ideas as them, or that are not like them in any way. That tells you just how weak their opinions are. Because if they felt strongly about their ideas, they wouldn't feel the need to force others to conform. They wouldn't feel the need to tell others, you cannot read such and such a book. Like I said, I mentioned before, I can't remember which horribly racist, bigoted book it was. I keep wanting to say it was the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, but it could have been a different, more of a racist book as opposed to anti-Semitic. But do I think people should read those books? Absolutely. Because people should be, when people hear about how this book is being used as a cudgel against Jews, or this book is being used as a cudgel against black people, or whatever happens. Yeah, you should know what the books say. I'm perfectly fine with that. But if you actually believe that, if you actually believe those ideas, other people have just as much right to call you crazy and not want to have anything to do with you. That is just how public discourse works. Republicans, for all their screams about wanting to protect free speech, the only free speech they want to protect is their own. And if you call them on it, you're somehow anti-free speech, because somehow they have the free speech to say something, but you suddenly don't have the free speech to criticize, because that makes sense. So yes, this is a great step. I would love for more states to push back on these book bans, because at the very least, a requirement should be that the people who are challenging the book bans should fucking read the book. If they can't be bothered to read the book or just go on some website to cherry pick a quote, because there are websites out there that say these books are bad and these are out of context quotes that we're going to put in there to make you think that these books are horrible and inappropriate. No, they have to actually not just read that one line, but they have to at least read the line before and or the line after. Because none of these people who are issuing book challenges, most of them, I won't say none, because I'm sure some actually, in good faith, actually do want books banned because of certain passages. But those people actually read the damn book. This is like reading the Cliff Notes, hoping that... Actually, not even reading the Cliff Notes. People who read the Cliff Notes have a better understanding of a book than these people do. So yeah, you should at least be able to quote the sentence before and the sentence after to show that you've actually read the damn book. But you should read the damn book before you challenge it, as opposed to going on some right-wing website, picking out a quote that the author's claim proves that this book is inappropriate, and then present it and just keep hammering that quote home as if that says everything. No, read the book. If you feel that strongly that this is a book that's worthy of being banned, read it. Because it's probably not saying what you think it says. Anyway, that is all I have for this video. And with that, I will see you guys in the next video.